Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 137th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. MF Doom is someone with so many classics over so many decades that at this point I probably had his work on this page more than any other artist. And I'm still not even halfway through all the essential projects that he's put out. While this first album that he released with KMD dropped in 1991, it's another classic I felt fit in with these other picks. Of course, Doom hadn't come up with his supervillain moniker or persona yet. At this time, he was known as Zevla Vex, and had already gotten a jump on the game a couple years earlier through his feature on Third Base's The Gas Phase. MC Search and Pete Nice actually were executive producers on the album we're discussing today, but as I said, KMD was a group, not a solo act, and you couldn't have had this forward-thinking crew without Doom's brother, DJ Subrock, and Onyx the Birthstone Kid. They also had more than a helping hand from legendary A&R Dante Ross, whose name has come up multiple times on this channel before, as just some of the other names he signed around this time included De La Soul, Queen Latifah, Digital Underground, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, Busta Rhymes, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Old Dirty Bastard, and Brand Nubian, who actually show up on Mr. Hood here for the only guest appearance on the entire LP. KMD did have a sophomore album, but it was clouded with so many horrible events that would ultimately result in the end of the group before it ever really got going. The first and easily least awful thing that happened was Onyx the Birthstone Kid departing from KMD before they even started to conceptualize the second LP, Black Bastards, though it seemed to have been a pretty amicable and reasonable split. The downhill spike really begins in early to mid 1993 when Sub Rock was tragically killed, trimming the three members that just 2 years earlier had collaborated on this gem down to solely Zevla Vex. This wasn't some random artist that he occasionally made music with and hardly knew. This was literally his brother, and while I don't want to make light of that horrible situation, it definitely was the catalyst in the process for creating the supervillain we all know and love today. I feel like sometimes the idea that this was his tragic, comic-like villain backstory, while obviously true in some sense, can be slightly disrespectful when you just chop down his brother's life and Doom's pain to this Joker movie fan fiction. If you're an avid MF Doom listener, you've probably heard the name Subrock even if you aren't aware of KMD, just through shoutouts he gave him throughout the years. One example comes to mind right away for me, mainly because it comes on one of my favorite songs in Doom's entire discography, that being Con Carne off of Food, where the very last line on the song is, "I dedicate this to Subrock the Hip Hop Hendrix." Back to Black Bastards though, while I agree with the common consensus that it's kind of a step up from Mr. Hood, for me it ends up not being as refined and forward-thinking as the other LPs released the same year, but to be fair, that really couldn't be less of Doom's fault. Even with the tragic circumstances in mind, things were looking in a brighter direction after everything was approved for their second LP, and it got slated for a mid-1994 release date. Unfortunately, once it was sent out, certain bigger names behind the scenes in the industry pretty much did everything within their power to stunt the album's growth, just because they were so ignorant and myopic that they thought the offense they took to the provocative album cover and title should dictate what everybody else gets to listen to. In the grand scheme of things, you can purchase Black Bastards with the art that was intended as it should be, and both Haplock Nelson and Terry Lossy, who went out of their way to slander and take food from the mouth of a grieving brother, should be ashamed. Really, Elektra as a label should feel bad, as they were the ones who approved all of this controversial material, then turned around and dropped the album and charged them $20K in compensation, which they knew they couldn't afford at that time. This crippled and already struggling Doom, who now had no means of making money from the LP that they had no prior reason to expect not to come out. Not only did they kill the momentum and just trash a quality album because they were spineless, but Dante and the other people representing Doom at the time had no success shopping Black Bastards around to other labels due to all the negative publicity it had already garnered. While it's easy to look back on that curse of a period in Daniel Dumoulin life and see it as a necessity to building the MF Doom we would see him reborn as by the end of the decade, it's important to remember just how cruel and soulless the industry can be. Just to be clear, the misplaced outrage comes from the album cover depicting a black Sambo character hanging, which is supposed to represent the death of the racist ideology that character was born from. Not just some hanging black man in a cartoon to be edgy as those hit pieces would suggest. Black Bastards would finally be released in 2000, which of course put it at an insane disadvantage, and outside of the new fans he was cultivating through the early stages of the Doom persona, it didn't chart or sell very well since it was recorded 7 years prior. That made it hard to place when it comes to how I organize my videos, so I just picked the debut as it's closer to the 80s and still has plenty of amazing moments, starting from the very beginning with the insanely innovative sample use on the first track. Doom, or Zevlavex as he was known at this time, interacts back and forth with the sample, chopping it into this pretty realistic conversation with dialogue that organically flows into his first verse. While he may sound much younger and more wistful than the MF Doom you may be accustomed to, he still was an insanely creative and technically proficient writer, even back then, and Onyx the Birthstone Kid was no slouch on the mic either. You can even hear slight traces of the dense structure that would later become a core staple to his idiosyncratic style, and he was definitely already pushing the boundaries in terms of where he would start or end a line. For example, his first bar on Mr. Hood after the comical skit comes in the form of, "This reminds me of the days of dwelling with those who killed off the weak for fancy clothes and hoes too, not opposed to the picket fence dream, but both lie on the same side of the gate," before proceeding to weave another crazy story in classic Doom fashion. For my honorable mentions, I think I'm going to go with Mr. Hood at Piccoli Jewelry slash Crackpot, Who Me with an answer from Dr. Burt, Subrock's Mission, Soul Flexin', Banana Peel Blues, 808 Man, Boogeyman, and the bonus track Gasface Refill. For my overall favorites on this thing, my top three would definitely consist of Boy Who Cried Wolf, Nitty Gritty, and Peach Fuzz. Thank you for watching my 137th video. Next time we're covering one of the only Golden Age native tongue classics I haven't talked about yet. So tune in for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off of the LP that started the whole Doom legacy are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.